I always see it as a problem because depending on where your location is in the world,
Uh-huh.
even though there are like thousands of fruits, you have limited access to a very
Yeah.
small amount. And that's what, depending on the time of year, and that's, I think, what makes it hard to just be exclusive fruit, because you don't have a variety. You have one
Hi,
mango
guy.
option, you have one.
Take the top off, please, so it doesn't drip all over the table.
You have one mango option, you have one banana option, and it can feel difficult at times because of that, because of the lack of the.
Can everyone hear the comment? His comment was, yeah, but it's difficult because depending on where you live, there might not be very many varieties available. You might not have many different kinds of fruits you can eat, et cetera, access to this stuff. Yeah, agreed. So how many places on the planet, remind me, can we run around in our birthday suits 12 months of the year? Tropics, that's it. Okay, we are tropical animals. The reason I live here, one of the primary reasons I live here, is because I can pick fresh fruit all year long. And the only limit to the number of varieties is how many I can get into the country. Okay? You're absolutely right. If you live, you live in New York.
Yeah.
So in New York, you've got maybe a 4 or 5 month growing season, 6 month growing season. The rest of the year, you can't grow anything.
Winter's terrible to have a variety of fruit.
Well, fortunately today, if you live in New York City, you can buy anything. You can buy all kinds of stuff. It's not the same as walking outside and, let me finish, as walking outside and picking it. It's not the same. There's no question. There's no comparison to having fresh fruit available to you. Okay? But you can, today you can buy all kinds of stuff anywhere. The best you can do is to live in a place where you have access to it all year long. Fresh fruit. This is where we belong. Okay? This is one of the reasons I choose to live here. Okay? So, but you're right. Any other place in the world, it's going to be more difficult. Entirely possible, but I've got clients doing it in almost every country you can think of.
Yeah, it's just the sustainability of the diet for long term.
No, it's completely sustainable forever because you don't need a vast number of species to survive. It's sustainable. It might be boring, it might not be as interesting, but you can do it. I lived 14 years outside of Washington, D.C. In the wintertime, we had citrus, apples, pears, kiwis, bananas, a few other things. Not a huge variety, that's okay. That's just how it is. You can live on that forever. And I have clients who've been doing this for 25 years, okay? In in cold parts of the world. I don't recommend it. It's definitely better here. If you haven't tried this, let me tell you a quick story. My very first trip to Costa Rica was 18, 19, maybe 20 years ago. And I came here with the woman I was dating at the time, and I rented a little cottage right in the Caribbean from an American carpenter who'd retired here. And he built himself a house, and then he built 3 beautiful cottages on this land. Oceanfront property, right? Caribbean front property. He had 10 acres, same size we have here. And I told him, I live on fruit, right? And he said, help yourself. He'd planted fruit trees all over the place. I borrowed a machete from him to open coconuts. He's like, help yourself, right? Free food and things I didn't get a chance to eat very often. All kinds of things I hadn't seen before. That was my first trip here. And the first day we were here, he comes over with a bunch of green bananas like this. And I said to him, thanks, but we're only here a week. And he said, they'll be ripe in 2 days. And I said, no way. And he said, way. Right? And of course, he lived there and knew better than I. Now, I was used to buying green bananas in North America and waiting weeks for them to ripen. Sometimes they never ripen, right? And I can tell you, we cut our bananas before they ripen. Anyone want to guess why? So the birds and bats don't eat them. We cut them before they ripen. They finish ripening perfectly fine inside, usually in no more than 2 to 4 days, depending on when they're cut, right? Perfectly well. As long as you don't cut them too early, they'll ripen perfectly fine. Now, bananas are shipped all over the world from here. They're picked way too soon. They're gassed to ripen. They're never the same thing. But all I knew was, these green bananas aren't going to be ripe. He said, yes, they are. And then I'm thinking to myself, okay, but Why would I be interested in bananas? I eat bananas at home all the time. In the wintertime, it's one of a 10 or 12 things I've got access to. Why would I want to eat them now? And then they got ripe 2 days later, and I tried one, and I realized it was a completely different thing than any banana I'd ever eaten before. Because it was picked when it should have been picked. It was allowed to fully mature on the tree. That's the difference. You can live on fruit anywhere. But in fact, when I moved to Central America, I moved to Panama first. I came here and looked 7 times looking for a site, had 2 verbal contracts, came back to sign agreement, and they said, sorry, we sold to somebody else. Both times. Both Americans, by the way, did that. And so, although I'm sure the Ticos would have done the same thing. So I got frustrated and thought, maybe I'll go check out Panama. And I wound up moving there. I moved back here because I like it much better here. So when I moved to Panama, it was 14 years ago in July, I moved 2 other North Americans with me. A Canadian woman from Quebec, who was my office assistant. She moved down, I moved her car down and my own. And an American who worked with us as well. I moved the 3 of us and all of our stuff, all the furniture, etc. We moved a half a container plus 2 cars and a motorcycle. And we were here for maybe 2 or 3 months, and we moved in the summertime. So the climate wasn't that different from where we were at the time to where we had moved to. We were still living on fruit and salad, same, right? We'd been there for maybe 6 or 8 weeks, and I said to the other 2 at a meal, I said, how do you guys feel? I said, I thought I felt great before. I feel even better here. And they said, we do too. And I realized the biggest difference was everything we were eating had been picked within 2 to 5 days. Whereas even in the summertime in North America, we were still buying things from California. Okay, which, for those of you not from the US, that's 5,000 kilometers from where we lived. Okay, that's a long way. The stuff is picked way too soon. The distribution systems have it going to a central warehouse and then being shipped from there. I mean, according to a man I know who runs the 2nd largest organic produce distribution company on the east coast of the US, he tells me that most things in the US, organic produce, 6 weeks from the time they're picked to the time they wind up on your store shelf. At least that's what it was at the time. That was maybe 18 years ago. Maybe it's better now, but it's still way too long. And so the food you're buying is substandard quality. Okay? You can live on it, but it's not the same as being where you can eat fresh food every single day. Everything we eat was picked, in the last few days, maybe maximum a week. Right? And some things tolerate that perfectly fine. But you really don't want anything that's so much older than that, because they're losing value, nutritive value, every single day. You want to eat things that are fresh. We have that here. We never had that in the US.